I'm Debbie, I'm the Finance Director here at Alltruck.
What does that entail on a day-to-day basis?
Generally, on a day-to-day basis, what I'm trying to do is be looking more future forward thinking, so kind of what the future brings in terms of day-to-day. Then there's nobody better to do the day-to-day runs of this business than the staff that we've got and the workforce that are around. So it's making sure that everybody's got the right tools to be able to do their jobs effectively and to keep the direction of travel of the business and to make sure we continue to keep growing for the future so that we can continue to develop the cathedral and have an environment where everybody within the business can continue to flourish.
When did you join Alltruck?
I first joined Alltruck in January 1999 when it was owned by the Bank of Scotland, so before we did our management buyout. I joined as a management accountant.
And how did you join Alltruck?
Through an agency, and the previous role I was in was no longer satisfying what I wanted to do in terms of developing my career. I went through an agency to look for a new role, and the role at Alltruck came up and attracted me, and I went through the process and was lucky enough to be given the position.
And how long have you been working in the transport industry for?
So, before Alltruck I wasn't in the transport industry at all, so my experience in the transport industry has really coincided with my experience with Alltruck, which is 21 years now.
What roles have you had previously?
Before I joined Alltruck, I was a management accountant at Triumph Motorcycles for a couple of years, and before that my graduate accountant role, if you like, was a joint venture at the time between Vodafone and Ericsson, so the mobile phone industry.
What are your thoughts on the transport industry?
I mean, I think the transport industry is a necessity that people don't realise, that people take for granted. I think it can have some bad press from time to time, and people don't really appreciate the importance of the transport industry and how the way goods get from A to B is via the transport industry, and I think that's completely taken for granted, and people don't understand the importance or the complexity actually of what being in the industry really entails.
What's one thing about the industry you wish people who aren't in it knew about?
I don't know so much about the industry, but I have a real appreciation for the poor drivers that are on the road actually driving HGV vehicles. Most people don't realise that a HGV vehicle that weighs above 7.5 tonne is restricted to 56 miles an hour. So when we get frustrated as one lorry tries to overtake the next one and we get stuck behind it, I think we don't realise that they can't go any faster. It just happens to be that one calibration of 56 miles an hour isn't quite the same as the next calibration. And again, if there is traffic and a lorry needs to pull out, it's realising the space they need, the fact that they've not got as much visual sight, though I know there's a lot of legislation that's improving that. So I think it's people don't really realise how tough it can be being a driver. And secondly, I don't think people appreciate the legislation that exists in the industry. So every commercial vehicle has to be inspected, often every 6 weeks. And I think that's just completely unknown to most of the general public. People would assume maybe it's an annual MOT, but actually to make sure that trucks are safe on the road and that the industry is maintaining really strict compliancy, there's a lot that goes with making sure that ensuring that happens, and people just don't understand or realise that.
What do you think is one of the biggest challenges that faces the industry today?
I think it's for us to understand what the future of the industry looks like from an environmental perspective. So if it's not going to be diesel engines, what is it going to be? Is it going to be electric? Is it going to be hydrogen? What does that look like? And how can we continue to create the movement of goods that we need to in the most environmentally efficient way? I think that's a big challenge that as an industry we need to understand how that technology is going to change and how it's going to impact us and what the future of the movement of goods really might look like.
And how do you think we can make people aware of the importance of the transport industry?
I think it is. I think people take for granted. We're moving more and more into a society where everybody expects everything to happen today. You can go online, you order something on Amazon this morning and it can be delivered that night. You will order some goods today and expect them to come tomorrow or the day after. The idea of having to wait for something really doesn't exist. If you go into a store, you expect to go into Currys and be able to buy your washing machine or your cooker there and then. The idea of having to wait for anything is really alien now to us as certainly the general public. And therefore it's really understanding that for that to happen, the pressure on the transport industry is huge, because in order to be able to create that just-in-time supply of goods to everybody and for everybody's needs, it puts an awful pressure on the individual companies that are trying to move their goods around in the most efficient way we can to make sure that we comply with legislation to try and be as green as we can and yet we've still got to try and meet the demands of the public, which are ever increasing, I think.
What makes you proud to work in the industry?
To be honest, I don't know if I'd say I'm proud to work in the industry. I'm incredibly proud of Alltruck and what we've achieved. For me, there's lots of people in the industry, there's lots of companies that rent trucks like we do or that operate trucks. For me, what makes me proud is about people, so it's about the environment in which we try and operate trucks. So our people, I think, are amazing. How we serve our clients is very people driven. How we deal with breakdowns, how we are proud to make sure that vehicles are well maintained, how our staff take what they do very, very seriously. For me, that's what makes me proud. It's the fact that we respect the industry, respect what we're going to do in it, but it's the people at Alltruck that make me proud every day.